Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited, and also I'm just going to get started because let's just do this. Okay, so first off, just there's my handle and information. I'll have it again at the end, but again, my name is Leah Ball. I work out of Logan Square, and the topic is taboo. Like, come on, guys. Okay. I know, it was good. Chelsea. Okay. I believe we all have unique motifs or themes in our lives that circle around us. I am constantly looking at bodies of water, outer space, feminism, science fiction, human sexuality, and music as themes of information to research and work from, inspiration, if you will. I also reflect on things that that I am the oldest sibling, that I am cisgendered and able-bodied and white, presenting. I also feel pulled to revisit uncomfortable personal stories, such as the erasure of my Mexican heritage and my familial identity and my own history with sexual trauma. I revisit them as a way to heal and understand my unique life experiences as this person, and to better understand how my identity and personal history informs my work and my relationship to the world. So when one of the most common questions presented to me by family and friends is, why are you like this? My brain gets hit with an incredibly rich visual from the poem by Rainer Maria Rilke, which goes, I live my life in widening rings, which spread over earth and sky. I may never complete the last one, but this is what I will try. I circle around God, that primordial tower, and I circle 10,000 years long, and I still don't know if I'm a falcon, a storm, or an unfinished song. I see my work as ellipses, responding to the present with bits of the past and pointed towards the future. I see each piece as a work in progress and part of a deeper investigation within my search for truth, knowing that truth is always pushing out of reach, and what actually motivates me is finding strength and beauty along that path of exploration. For, as soon as I almost answer one question, the discovery leads to an iteration that puts the knowing just out of reach. I believe what defines us more than anything else are the questions that we ask. So what does it mean when the people I love ask me, Leah, why are you like this? What is in this question? Some context. Most often people pose this question when I am talking about the projects I am working on, when I talk about doing research for drawings by watching queer porn, or writing an essay on process-oriented virginity, or working on my feminist manifesto, or when I came out as queer. I think often their questions are twofold. Why are you like this, and why do you share this so publicly? In this talk, I want to address both questions, and I'm going to use the definition of taboo provided by one of my favorite number 45 trolls, Merriam-Webster, as my guide. So taboo. It is forbidden to profane use or contact because of what are held to be dangerous supernatural powers. To A, banned on grounds of morality or taste, the subject is taboo. To B, banned as constituting a risk. So taboo is risky, it's tasteless, and immoral. But who decides what's risky and why? Who are the tastemakers? What morals and who defines them? Up until I was a young adult, I would visit Las Vegas about once a year. It is where my parents grew up and where most of my family still lives. I am not sure if any of you have ventured off the Strip, but Strip while in Vegas, but so much of Las Vegas that I know is made of expansive suburbs where every third house is the same, with only superficial alterations depending on the residence. In middle school, when being different was a recipe for being bullied and heartbroken, I yearned for the simplicity of this sameness and fantasized about living in one of these neighborhoods. I wanted to hide behind conformity to find comfort. I had moved away from my California childhood home among the rhythms of the ocean and grit of the sand to Texas, where I was cast aside by my fellow classmates. I yearned to be normal. I wanted to take the ocean out of my hair. That is until I was raped under the roof of one of these cookie-cutter homes just before sophomore year, and the way I perceived the world completely shifted. Their uniformity required compliance, which symbolized the violent silence just under the surface of the seemingly picture-perfect cul-de-sac. My acceptance for the order of things was repeatedly challenged when over and over again I had to defend my value, and understanding my ever-changing role as female, as sexual, as survivor, as human, in a world that has no footing for any of that. My mom asked me after my divorce, "Leah, do you think you got a divorce because you were raped?" She also asked later, "Leah, do you think you're queer because you got a divorce?" With both of these questions, I would pause. The answer is both yes and no. Yes for reasons she may not understand, and no for reasons that might make her uncomfortable. No, my rape, divorce did not damage me so much that I had no agency in these decisions. No, I happily chose things that make her scared. Yes, being violated and having to navigate this world as damaged made me look for an alternate value system. And yes, performing heteronormative behaviors broke my heart and spirit and made me look for something more suited to who I am and how I want to live. About a year ago, I went to Camp Solondahuega. It was from this immersion that I found writing again, which has become so crucial to my artistic practice ever since. At the time, I was super interested in the performance of magic and how, as the author Graham Jones argues in his book titled Trade of Tricks Inside the Magician's Craft, it's a really good book, how the performance of magic is essentially the performance of masculinity, whiteness, class, and power. The history of the French godfather of magic, Robert Houdin, Harry Houdini actually later got his name from Robert Houdin, is a study in the power of manifesting a closer proximity to power and wealth by reflecting back that image. Robert Houdin was on a path to be a clockmaker until a book on magic tricks mistakenly sent home with him from the bookstore instead. Through working the tricks to appeal to the self-reflexive sensibilities of the bourgeois, he was able to secure a place among them. And he did this by using assumptions of race and gender to his advantage when performing white upper-class heteronormative male virility. This is important because it's these people's tastes that made the occult and dark magic of the colonized peoples they were appropriating taboo, but the performed magic that appealed to their status and access tasteful. 200 years later, this top-coat adorned sleight-of-hand style of magic is still prominent. But what do we consider magic? Again, Merriam-Webster. The use means, as charms or spells, believed to have supernatural power over natural forces. There is also an element of suspension of disbelief, which is defined as a willingness to suspend one's critical faculties and believe the unbelievable, sacrifice of realism and logic for the sake of enjoyment. Magic asks that we both suspend our belief while relying on preconceived notions of natural to be dazzled. In Houdin's magic, he used that as a way to get himself and his family nearer to the power and access. But what if there is a way to use this moment of suspension to contaminate the very hold this system has over all of us, to reveal something new? Let's go back to taboo. Forbidden to profane use or contact because of what are held to be dangerous supernatural powers. Sounds kind of magical to me, right? So let's break this down. What does it mean? Forbidden equals not allowed. Profane is vulgar or inappropriate. Use or contact because of what are held or believed to be dangerous or risky. And then something that's beyond supernatural, so something beyond scientific understanding of the laws of nature, power or ability to act, to produce an effect. Okay, so banned, vulgar, and inappropriate use or contact because of what is to believe to be dangerous, unnatural actions that produce an effect. This is where I arrive. It is through magic and taboo that a portal can open up to create the space to distance ourselves from the overarching hegemony that keeps us all distorted versions of ourselves, that others, some, erases others and amplifies too few. Magic is the dichotomy of natural, supernatural, what taboo is to appropriate, inappropriate. It's the liminal space where the facade is both upheld and undermined. And I think a potential place for the continuity of tradition to become uncertain. It's malleable in that the obvious performance of this binary relationship actually weakens the steadfast footing. It's the space you have to go in order to find the edge, but to do that you have to lose it too. It's this place that I hope my work acts within and from, with the tension and submerged in the murky water in this hologram of rigid space. I guess it makes aesthetic sense that the style I use in my material world is a mixture of colorful swirled liquid clay, the fluid nature of the material captured permanently in rigid objects. It was in both this fluid and rigid process that I found a voice and a confidence I needed to situate myself as a working artist. It was in the space between that I found a voice. An ongoing project that I am so thrilled to be working on with my creative life partner, Chelsea Ross, remember her name, it will come up a lot in my work, is the Feminist as Fuck campaign. The project sort of evolved organically out of a righteous anger I had towards the invisibility of femme artists that do work within the femme realm, i.e. craft work or objects of adornment. In defiance, I made a blush pink and floral ceramic wall hanging that a hand-lettered centerpiece that said feminist as fuck, a term first coined by Jennifer Reeder, which I later found as a hashtag. I felt it cathartic to make it, and felt even more cathartic to identify as feminist as fuck, full stop. Out of the hand-lettered illustrations of the phrase, I worked with a local CAD designer to render delicate fine jewelry. Feminist as fuck amulets to adorn myself and community in. Thanks to the brilliant mind of Chelsea, we both agreed that this project had the potential to be much bigger than a material thing inserted ironically in capitalist currency. What began as a weekend of documenting the many beautiful feminists in our lives, it has expanded to at least a 2-year commitment in documenting feminisms to form a future plural. One of the most valuable things about this project to me is what happens during those shoot weekends where people come and visit, snack, talk, and share, and expose themselves to a personal portrait. It seems like what happens for many of the people, at least from my observation, is that they end up reinvesting in themselves as feminists through ruminating on their own personal feminist history and manifesto, and having their pictures so thoughtfully taken. It is with this reinvestment in self that they move forward and the communities they return to are enriched. The Pleasure is Power project started for me when I read a quote by the writer India Ame. A centrally activated woman is a wealthy natural resource for any community. Pleasure is power. What inspired me about this idea was the idea that a woman who is fully participant in the central world within and around her is actually crucial to her community, while the system we currently live in says the exact opposite, that it is to be feared and relegated to the realm of taboo, if you will. It is having candid discussions about concepts like this over the last few years of my life that make being so public and vocal about my work seem worth the risk. At a roundtable discussion with the matriarch in my family, when this quote was discussed, the anger and sadness was recognized and released. The pain that there might be a better way, so visceral. One of the most radical things we can do is honestly share conversations with one another. True, deep conversations about the experiences we have had and the feelings we navigate, our histories of love and loss and trauma that we emerge from. I truly believe that one of the most effective ways patriarchy has sedated us is by utilizing shame and fear to separate ourselves from being in our bodies and our bodies from each other. In my opinion, solo, partnered, or group pleasure is the antithesis of that. In a piece I wrote and shared recently at Salon-a-thon, I discussed my defiant moment joining the Mile High Club all by myself. In this excerpt, I expand on the power of solo self-love practice. And this is an excerpt from that. I can be scared of this body, its mortality, its vulnerability, its decay, especially the poignancy of its sensuality, my personal and familial history with disease and sexual violence always weighing on my microscopic structure. But when I make myself come, I bend that power struggle into a circle and feel I am in harmony. My own fingers working an improvised routine to the unique drum of my own imperfect heartbeat, the tenor of my own cooing moans. Fear becomes wonder, sadness sensational, my mortality a sincere pact with the infinite universe. My full wanting mouth, my most powerful tool in this journey around the sun. You saw that mug, okay. With Shop Sensual, Chelsea and I wanted our work to be in conversation with a number of other artists that all explore sensuality in various different ways in order to be made wider in scope and deeper in community commitments. We partnered with Kristen Kaza and Reunion to produce a weekend-long event that included a night market and related weekend programming to explore the sensual. I also co-taught with tattoo artist Tiny DiFiore an erotic art making class that allowed space and provided loose instructions in order to mediate on the sensual. The weekend was a breathing experiment into participating in capitalism, because that is the water in which we swim, but subverting or perverting its typical patriarchal structure with the feminine, queer, and sensual in order to exploit the system. To use the format in service of our own principles, politics, and dreams. As co-conspirator and sex therapist Rena McDaniel wrote about Shop Sensual. You have to slow down when you say it. Shop Sensual. Okay. Excuse me. Perhaps, though, the most deeply subversive aspect of pleasure is how it connects us to the feeling of expansiveness, personal power, and fulfillment that, once we have felt it, experiencing anything less is unacceptable. Once felt, we refuse to live a world that does not allow each of us to feel that way. That perhaps is why pleasure and eroticism is so feared. It compels us to action in order to create a world of infinite possibility that we have only caught glimpses of. So I'm just going to cycle through a few photos from that weekend because it was extra special. Darling, she is performing. We had lots of little Nat showing harnesses, and then we had a couple installations of artwork from all the people that participated, and then here's a still from the erotic class that I co-taught, which was really, really fun. All right, so in the next stage of this project, I've been really focused on the ritual and pleasure derived from taking baths as an act of sexual defiance. Bath time. A deliberate time-based ritual, unamused even if temporarily by the beat of the capitalist whip. Side note, most of the projects I embark on have super perks to research, and this is definitely one of those projects. With bath time, I aim to continue the trajectory of the pleasure project, but with a fuller context of potential solo sensuality and remove explicit gendered depictions. This is currently in the very early stages, but stay tuned, as the medium I plan for this to expand into will be very exciting. So back to the potentiality of the taboo and that persistent question, why are you like this? Just like the poem by Rilke suggests, I am more concerned with living a life of ever-widening rings, immersed in discovery and change, than abiding by imposed rules of the forbidden. I hope through my work you see a constant questioning of what defines the parameters of this fluid thing called taboo, and how fruitful pushing those boundaries can be when we unlock, and what can be unlocked by suspending our acceptance of it, and interacting in real ways can lead to. My hope are these sorts of questions start to percolate some important examinations of what is natural? Is it biological norms? Is it natural order? Whose biological norms? Heterosupremacy? What natural order? White supremacist capitalism? And how does glorifying it serve us? If natural is prescribed by the status quo, what then is considered supernatural? How do things that exist in the realm of the inappropriate and vulgar move and change and morph based on our interaction with them? What happens if, instead of asking, is this taboo, we ask, is this actually dangerous, or is it just threatening to undermine the power of a corrupt system? The natural versus supernatural is a distraction. It's a theology making concrete something that is inherently fluid and up to interpretation. There are just questions and intersections that exist in a liminal space ripe for potential for a better future. Those are the conversations I am constantly having, whether in my work, material written, or in my daily lived experience. As theoretical physicist Werner Heisenberg says, what we observe is not nature itself, but nature exposed to our method of questioning, i.e., we construct a world by the questions we ask. So I would like to end on a few questions for all of you. Taboo can be the alchemy of taking something supposedly wrong and shameful into something empowering and magical. What is taboo to you? What causes you shame? What feels dangerous or unnatural? Do you actually derive pleasure or power out of those things? How can you shift this discomfort of unknowing into the pleasure of discovery? Consider moments in your life where you have felt destabilized or have had your deeply held beliefs knocked from your hands. What does that feel like to sit in that altered space? What can you learn from it? How can you create from it? Thank you.